Welcome back, Sebastian here. So time for my review for the 2024 Monaco Grand Prix. It was a race, I think, unfortunately with how things went on the opening lap, it really made things quite boring strategically afterwards, given that, everyone basically didn't have to make a pit stop. But, we'll get into it. So, Leclerc started on pole, Piastri P2. Haas were starting on the back row after being disqualified from quali. A real interesting mix of hard and medium tires for the start, and it was actually exactly 10 each for each side. And Russell was actually the first driver starting on the hard tires in P5. Leclerc holds the lead. Sainz was out at Casino. Basically, he tapped the front, or he basically banged wheel slightly with Piastri in turn 1, and it basically slightly dislodged the tire, so he couldn't really steer. So he's stopped at Casino. But further back, we had absolute carnage. Perez was basically stopped in turn 2 with his car ripped up, and both Haas's were out as well. And basically what happened was Magnussen and Perez attempted to go side by side. Really, Magnussen tried to go side by side with Perez, going through turn 2, which is very tight, not really a straight line. It's basically, very tight, gentle undulations basically in the track. And yeah, basically made contact at pretty high speed, both go into the wall, debris everywhere, they kind of collect Hulkenberg with them, and yeah, we get a red flag. So I asked, do drivers switch tires? And they do. So everyone switches tires, and Sainz, very luckily for him, the red flag was called before they went to basically the sector 1 line. So he is reinstated in P3, not at the back of the grid, so quite lucky for him. Lap 3, smooth restart, and I wrote, don't expect much now that they've done the mandatory stops. Alonso got past Ricciardo at the restart, and he was up to P12. Lap 9, Russell was concerned about creating a pit window for the top 4. Lap 14, leaders were doing 119s. For reference, the pole time was like a 110, so they were going about 9 laps slower than what they did in quali yesterday, and that's because they're basically going to do a 78 lap race on one set of tires. Lap 16, Bottas pitched for hards. He was in 15th, I believe, 15th, 16th, so he basically only lost 2 positions by pitting for hard, but in the end I think it worked out. Lap 18, Bottas gets fastest lap, 5 seconds faster than the leaders, just showing what crazy tire management was going on. Lap 24, the Russell train is 12.6 seconds behind Norris, or no, 12.6, yeah, so not enough for a pit stop, but it was getting to the point where if that gap continued to grow, it might be a concern later in the race. Lap 26, Alonso's radio was planned B+2, so I thought tire change coming maybe. It turns out it would be, but not for Alonso. Lap 34, 22-second gap between Tsunoda and Hamilton, free pit stop coming. I felt for Hamilton at that part. Lap 42, the Alonso train was lapped by the leaders. Lap 42, and this is kind of something that you saw coming from a couple laps before. Lap 43, Stroll pitched for hard tires. Alonso had basically just built a gap for him, so that's the one benefit when you have 2 teammates back to back. One teammate can basically back everyone up, and the other teammate can get a free pit stop, with the hope of maybe you can create a big enough tire delta, a pace offset, that you can actually make an overtake. Doesn't exactly go to plan though, as lap 50, Stroll gets a puncture and comes out in last, and it seems like he hit something at Nouvelle Chicane, not sure if it was the wall, just hit the curb too aggressively, but unfortunately for him, he has to pit again, and that basically is the end of his race. Lap 52, Hamilton finally pitched for that gap that was built by Tsunoda earlier in the race. Bottas, then we actually get some overtakes on track. Bottas overtakes Sargent for P13 at Mirabeau. That was a nice one there. Lap 53, Verstappen pits covering for Hamilton. Decided might as well take the free stop. We get yellow flags in sector 2, not sure what that was for. And right after Verstappen pits, Hamilton is absolutely living on the radio because he's like, I didn't know I had to go push on the outlap. I think, it's Monaco, you should know that you're going to have to push on your outlap, and drivers around you are going to be trying to take advantage of that open pit window that you've built. Lap 56, Sainz has a really slow exit of the swimming pool chicane. Norris comes very, very close, didn't make contact, but it could have gone ugly if Norris had damaged his front wing. making contact with Sainz there. Then we get Stroll. Stroll makes a couple of really nice overtakes actually. Overtakes Joe for P15 through the tunnel, and then overtakes Sargent at gets a switchback at Saint Devat. So, and he was up to P14 at that point. Lap 59, Sargent, his tires are dead. He pits for new tires. Lap 62, Verstappen has caught back up to Russell. Let's see, 10 laps after making a pit stop, so basically gained 2 seconds a lap there. Lap 68, Sargent says, I've hit the wall. Not a big deal. He basically just clipped the inside of the exit of the swimming pool chicane. It's kind of, that's how you make the fastest line through there. But really you only see that ever in qualifying. Lap 70, Sargent overtakes Zhou for P15 at Mirabeau. Good move there by Sargent. Takes advantage of Zhou getting lapped by the leaders. Final lap of the race, Leclerc takes the checkered flag, 6th career win, first home win of course for Leclerc, and the first ever Monegasque winner of the Monaco Grand Prix. So really chuffed for Leclerc, really deserved this after having the 2 previous pole positions, one where his car didn't start because the Ferrari engineers didn't check for damage on the opposite side of the car, and the other was of course the strategy disaster in 2022. So really glad that Leclerc finally wins his home race. You never know how many opportunities you'll have between cars or other unforeseen circumstances, so you always want to capitalize on those opportunities when you can. So joining Leclerc on the podium, Piastri and Sainz, kind of what we would have expected going into the race. But for Sainz, very lucky after how things went at turn 1 or on lap 1. 4th Norris, 5th Russell, 6th Verstappen, 7th Hamilton, 8th Tsunoda, 9th Albon, 10th Gasly, and then from 11th down is where things kind of start to change. Alonso 11th, 12th Ricciardo, 13th Bottas, 14th Stroll, 15th Sargent, 16th Zhou, and then your 4 retirements: Ocon, Hülkenberg, Perez, and Magnussen. Ocon also retired after lap 1. Didn't really see a replay of what happened actually. They might have showed it during the replay. I skipped a lot of the red flagged on the DVR. But it seems like, from what I've seen online, seems like he might have gone into some kind of incident with his teammates, so that's definitely something. Now, taking a look at the championship standings, Verstappen still leads 169 points, but Leclerc only 31 points ahead on 138. So don't look now, only 31 points. If this kind of trend continues from the last, even 2 to 3 weeks, where Ferrari, Red Bull, McLaren are very, very close on pace, we could be within maybe talking about a title fight. I think still a bit too early. I'd like to see their performance at a couple more permanent build tracks where you can actually overtake. But nonetheless, I think obviously we're already at a point where the domination for Red Bull Verstappen is going to be a lot less than it was last year. Norris 3rd, 113 points. Sainz 4th, 108. Perez drops to 5th, 107. Yeah, pretty tough weekend overall for Red Bull. 6th Piastri 71, 7th Hamilton 54, 8th Hamilton 42, 9th Alonso 33. Tsunoda picks up some more good points with that 8th place, so he's now on 19. 11th is Stroll on 11. 12th is Behrman on 6. 13th Hülkenberg on 6. 14th Ricciardo on 5. Albon first points of the year and 15th with 2. Ocon 16th with 1. Magnussen on 17th with 1. 18th Gasly also with 1. And Zhou, Bottas, and Sargent also on 0. It'll be interesting to see with Magnussen what they decide to do with responsibility for that lap 1 incident. My honest guess is they'll just say racing incident and not do anything about it. I didn't see anything when I briefly checked the F1 app about Magnussen getting a race ban, and of course that's going to be, I think unfortunately, for better or worse, that's going to weigh heavily on the minds of the stewards because they really don't want to give Magnussen a race ban, so they'll probably just call it a racing incident. I think overall not a great race. I think even though we had that carnage on the opening lap, the reality is that because everyone got to do a free pit stop after the race, or during the red flag period, there was basically no incentive for anyone unless they did a free pit stop to change tires. They've talked about this before where, drivers have gained massive advantages getting a free pit stop under red flags. Obviously this was a bit different given it was lap 1, but it basically took the only interesting component out of Monaco. There's other ways that you can solve that. One solution would be not allowing pit stops under red flags, which is not really feasible for safety concerns. The other one is that, which I think is a bit more realistic, is that tire changes that you make under a red flag do not count towards your minimum pit stops. So, for example, you have a red flag like we did today on opening lap, and that would not count towards the pit stops. You're basically your one mandatory pit stop, so it still force everyone else to do it again. So maybe the outcome of today's race may change that and may lead to a change in the future, but we'll see. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. That's my review of the 2024 Monaco Grand Prix. Goodbye.